On October 1st, 1949, the national flag of New China was first raised here. Mao Zedong, in his capacity as chairman, declared the birth of New China on the rostrum of Tiananmen. The central government of the People's Republic of China is hereby established. Poor and backward country. At that time, total steel output was just 160,000 tons and crude oil output 120,000 tons. In the beginning, there was no industrial base and agricultural production was still at a primitive stage. The new government first launched land reforms in rural areas, enabling farmers to realize their dream of taking charge of their own land. Like farmers, workers also became masters of the nation. After suffering through a long period of war and poverty, the emancipated people actively dedicated themselves to the construction of the new nation. In the year after New China was established, the fire of the Korean War spread to the border of China. Facing such adversity, China had to dispatch volunteer troops to Korea while continuing the task of construction at home. China was aiming to develop itself into an independent, democratic, and rich socialist nation in a period of a century. Due to continuous civil war and conflicts, the old China lacked adequate infrastructure, including transportation and water conservation facilities. In the early days of New China, the government mobilized millions of workers for the construction of railways, roads, and water conservation projects. The Chinese leaders also gradually realized that China, like any large nation, could not develop its national economy by relying on the heavy industry of other countries. Therefore, during the early construction period, China focused on establishing its own heavy industrial base. In Anshan, northeast China, workers rebuilt the nation's first large steel production plant in the shortest time possible. Who used to work in Anshan, remembers the period clearly.
2 years after we started the operation of the plant, we also quickly resumed the production of 3 blast furnaces.
The development of the steel industry rendered strong support for the development of other industries. In 1956, China turned out its first automobile. At that time, for a country with an extremely weak industrial base, this was undoubtedly a source of great national pride. As a result, the Chinese named the car Jiefang, which means liberation. In 1956, China concluded its first 5-year plan, during which many national firsts were recorded and a basic industrial system began to take shape. With the farmers' growing enthusiasm in production and the launching of the village cooperation movement, China achieved good harvests over many consecutive years. Achievements in industry and agriculture improved the people's living standards. In the period from 1953 to 1956, retail sales grew rapidly and people could buy many fashionable items at the market. However, economic construction could not progress without a peaceful environment and international cooperation. Shortly after New China was founded, Mao Zedong paid a visit to the Soviet Union, and the two sides inked a series of cooperation agreements. In 1954, a Chinese delegation attended the Geneva Conference. In the following year, on behalf of the Chinese government, Zhou Enlai raised 5 principles as the basis of international relations. They are the principles of non-aggression towards another nation's territory, non-interference in another nation's internal affairs, equality, mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. In preparation for New China's 10th anniversary celebrations, Tiananmen Square underwent a major renovation. People from all walks of life participated in the renovation work, which substantially speeded up the project. Also that year, Beijing finished its 10 great architectural works. The grand scale of the buildings reflected the vitality of a thriving young China. In just 10 years, China had achieved greater progress than it had in the past 100. On the eve of National Day, delegates from China's 56 nationalities gathered in Beijing to attend the 10th anniversary celebration activities. This was the young China showing itself to the world. People were stepping forward with full confidence. They cheered from the bottom of their hearts the achievements they had made. On October 1st, 1959, Tiananmen Square was submerged in a sea of triumphant jubilation.
Just a decade after the founding of the PRC, China was plunged into 3 years of severe natural disasters. The country's development suffered a heavy blow. The first hope of recovery came with the discovery of oil in the northeast. It wasn't long before the country's economic construction was back on track, only to be derailed again with the outbreak of the 10-year period of chaos known as the Cultural Revolution.
During the 3 difficult years established in China, ration cards representing the right to purchase covered almost all daily necessities. The unprecedented hardship aroused the entire nation's spirit of independence and self-reliance. Hundreds of